Johnny Game Time Hicks, and we're back with the Fantasy Whispers again. We're doing week 3 now. Can't believe it's already week 3. We're talking those week 3 waiver wire ads that you are going to want to rush to the waiver wire. Make sure you grab at least a couple of these guys. Not only that, but that's like the minimal stuff. We're going to tell you who, more importantly, to drop and get off your rosters, get away from those guys, or trade away in order to get some of this blood in on your lineup. All that and more on this episode of the Fantasy Whispers.
Right here.
That's right, Johnny. We're here. We're doing it. Waiver wire week 3 is upon us. We're rocking and rolling. I'm Big Travie. You can find me on Twitter at Big Travie TFW. I'm joined, as you saw on the front of the show, by Johnny Game Time Hicks. Johnny, we're going to be going through here. How are you, man? Week 3, it's already here.
I can't believe it, man. It's nice because we get another point for all these teams. The unfortunate news is that the points didn't really correlate with week 1, and so teams were kind of pulling out our hair, trying to figure out what is going on. Yeah, Saints, I'm looking at you. But that's not what we're diving into on that. We will dive into those matchups and stuff, matchup breakdown, available on our Patreon. So if you'd like to help our channel, help support, lights on, keep us going, while also getting extra content, make sure you go over to the Patreon page, sign up for either the $5 or the $10 tier, and you get a plethora of extra added content, as well as a week or a monthly added drawing for a signed autographed jersey, as well as some sports card giveaways. Really nice value there. You can basically get a signed jersey for $10.
Yeah, it's a great deal. You get to help out the cause. You get to help grow the Patreon nation over there, which we love. We've got exclusive content for you. And then, as Johnny said, get a chance to win a signed jersey. We've got a Keenan Allen jersey coming in that's going to be given away. We've got some great ones in here that are in the mix.
I'm being Big Travie behind the stage. I'm a little loud, so I apologize if I'm coming a little laggy through the stream. Trying to fix, man, internet these days. Well, I can't even tell you anything.
Technology, man.
Travis. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to up there, Big Travie.
You're good.
I wanted to ask you. I know we're going to dive into these waiver wire guys. We're going to talk about a bunch of them. We're going to give you a list of guys to make sure you check, and we'll dive into a little bit more than we normally do on these guys that are above 50%. Strictly because we want to talk about it. We want to make guys have a plethora of knowledge on the guy just slightly above 50%. So that way you can go out and check your waiver wire for those guys, more importantly. And then those guys understand leagues are competitive. Our leagues are competitive. We'll dive into some deeper stashes, guys that are below 50%, and we'll give you some running backs, wide receivers, a couple of tight ends, a couple quarterbacks you can stream this week. But first, Big Travie, is there anyone in particular, could be on this list, could not be on this list, but anyone in particular that you are very excited for, you saw this weekend, you were encouraged this weekend by their usage, maybe like a guy that you were getting a little bit later drafts, but now seems to really start coming into their own, and you can really see them, maybe they aren't first, but you were able to pick them up later. What player are you kind of going out and trying to get, or what player are you really excited for, seeing what he's done in these weeks?
Yeah, I think it's impossible to do this show without talking about Rondell Moore right now and what Rondell Moore has been able to do. The problem that I had writing about Rondell Moore this week is he is owned or rostered in over 52% of sleeper leagues, which means I can't necessarily put him in the column and tell you to go get him, because it's likely that, in your league, it's over a 50% chance that you don't have him available. But I think his usage that we saw, obviously in a spiked week, we look at his snaps from week 1, 29%, his snaps in week 2, 46%. And then he's producing at a high level without even seeing more than 50%. That stat is courtesy of Zare K, our guy over on Twitter. You can find him at ZCantsFF. He's in the listener league. He's a big friend of ours. But yeah, yards per catch in both games, just over 16, 114 receiving yardage last week on 7 catches on 8 targets. This is a game where, I mean, this article is going to be littered when it gets up on the site later today. It's going to be littered with Arizona Cardinals, from the tight end to AJ Green to Rondell Moore. But I think Rondell Moore is the guy with the most upside out of this offense outside of DeAndre Hopkins.
I absolutely love the Rondell Moore call. We've been talking about him off season, saying that most likely he was going to be in this waiver wire column at some point early in the season. And here we are starting off with week 3. Unfortunately for your boy, I had to drop him right before week 2. So now I have to go and battle for Rondell on waivers. Luckily, in some other leagues, I was able to hold on to him. So not too bad. I like the Rondell Moore call. All right, Travis, wanted to let people know on the way. And before we get into some of these deep dive stashes here, and a reminder of players that you need to look for on your waiver wire first, just want to mention, if you are new to our channel, I want to appreciate the people that are tuning in right now, watching. If you hit this video with a thumbs up, greatly appreciate it. And if you're new to our channel, you're stopping by or getting this information, you like it, please give us a subscribe, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell right next to it so you get notified whenever we go live, which is basically daily whenever during the season, basically live 5 days a week. We produce content every single day to help you get ready for the fantasy football week and hopefully get you that W, get that win. All right, Travis, that's all my promos for today that I have. So let's dive.
Want to say what's up to Gus Ramos really quick while we're on the promo shtick. Do it 420 saying what's up, guys. Want to say what's up to you guys. Johnny, before we jump into the guys that are actually going to be in the column, I think it's important that we do a little rundown maybe of these guys that are rostered above 50%, just so everybody can get in. Like, I don't want everybody jumping in my DMs. Why are these guys not being talked about? Or you know what I mean? Like, these are guys rostered above 50% that I think you need to go to the waivers and make sure they're not in your league. So in the higher percentage, go ahead, Johnny. Sorry.
Yeah. So those guys are going to be Jalen Waddle, who is 89% owned, Michael Pittman Jr., 78% rostered, Justin Fields, who should see a lot more of the field moving forward with Andy Dalton sidelined for now, 69%. Probably would be our number one. Yeah, nice. Would be our probably number one quarterback option there if he's available in your league. Marvin Jones, 68%. James White at 67%. Darnell Mooney at 66%. Any of those top guys, Travis, that you like the most, just out of the ones I just mentioned? So Jalen Waddle, Michael Pittman, Fields, Marvin Jones, James White, and Darnell Mooney. Out of those guys right there that are above, the 65% rostered. I guess I could throw Michael Carter in there too. He's at 66%. Of those guys, who are you most looking to grab off the waiver if they are available?
I'll do quickly, just rapid fire with 3. Justin Fields, we've already talked about the upside at quarterback position. If you can go get Fields on your roster, I think now is the time to do it, as he's just under 70%. Marvin Jones is an interesting one. As we've talked about, he could be the guy as a veteran that the rookie Trevor Lawrence could lean on, and he has been great in his last 2 games, gobbling up targets in this offense. And I think with Laviska injury, if Visca's forced to miss any time, this would only increase Marvin Jones' productivity. So I think if he's out there, you should go grab him, especially if you're wide receiver needy. And then James White, we've just seen that Mac Jones is a guy that can run this offense the way they want to do it, and there's a lot of targets there to be had for James White out of the backfield. So if you're in a PPR, you went 0 RB, you need an RB replacement. If he's still out there, James White's a great ad.
Love that one. All right. Moving on to the second tier of guys that are still over rostered over 50% in leagues, but make sure that these players are not available again in your league before you dive into any of these other guys and check for their availability on your waiver wire. Guy I really want to talk about here, probably on a lot of rosters already, but if he is on your roster, I do think that he's even playable as a flex option moving forward, even with Ezekiel Elliott still fully healthy and still getting a bulk of carries for this backfield. But Tony Pollard coming in at 62% rostered on most leagues. Definitely think he is worth the number one waiver wire ad if you have it. I definitely think he's worth a good portion of your FOB budget or WAP budget if you have it, because Tony Pollard is going to see the field a lot, especially with Michael Gallup out still for a couple more weeks. Travis, you also see standalone value for for a guy like Tony Pollard?
Yeah, Johnny, you brought it up last night on the stream talking about Gallup being out, and then so Tony Pollard getting increased snaps as a receiver. He's looked great in both contests as far as receiving work. So Tony Pollard's a guy you definitely want to snag. I do want to talk a little bit about. I mean, if you just look at it, 109 rushing yards last week, obviously 31 and 29 receiving yards the weeks 2 and 3. 7 catches. He's caught all of 7 of his targets on the year. He's just looked good. He's looked explosive.
Super explosive.
So that's just somebody, there's a lot of people out there that's saying Zeke's washed or he's done. I think Zeke's looked fine, especially in a better matchup against the Chargers. But I do love that Tony Pollard is a guy that, could easily be stepping into more looks with Gallup out of the lineup.
Would you would you be looking to acquire Zeke right now? Maybe if the Zeke, whoever rosters Zeke in your league is a little panicky because Pollard has produced. Everyone's talking how Pollard looks better than Zeke and they should give Tony Pollard even more touches. Are you going to try to acquire him, or you're just you're not hot or cold on Zeke, you're just letting it play out?
Yeah, I think Zeke's hitting more of his floor right now than we had anticipated, especially in that Chargers game. You wanted to see a lot more points scored. You wanted him to get a little bit more in there, but he was fine. He scored a touchdown. He had some all-purpose yardage that you liked. Pollard has been stealing the show with a little bit more like flashy plays, but I think Zeke's going to be fine. He's going to be a touchdown guy for this team going forward, and I just think there is some things I wouldn't be ready to go trade Zeke because I don't think you'd get value for him if you were trading him away. If you could go get him, and Mr. Miyagi coming in here, what price would you pay for Zeke? An Eckler or Montgomery. I don't know if I'm really willing to give up, Montgomery here. And then in PPR, I don't know if I'm willing to give up an Eckler to go get Zeke right now, just because of the usage of Pollard. And that's not an indictment on Zeke. I just think we need to temper expectations. Zeke's not going to be the ceiling play just yet that we thought. And it could be that this is just warming up. The offense is just getting going here with Dak into the mix. So we'll see. Obviously, the Amari Cooper injury is going to play another role too.
Yeah.
If Cooper is out for extended time, we could see Zeke used even more as a focal point of this offense. So we'll just kind of see how it goes here.
And I just want to touch. We got a question we were just talking about Fields. We had Mr. Miyagi saying he has 2 waivers out for Fields and Carr. We'll talk about Carr here in just a second. Gus Ramos asking, should I drop Tannehill for Fields? I have Kyler Murray. I think I would.
Yeah, if you have Kyler Murray, you have the flexibility to do this deal right here where you could drop Tannehill if you have concerns of the offense. Go take an upshot, start at Fields, and let's see if with a week of practice and game planning, if he could be a little bit better for this offense.
All right, just a couple more players I want to mention here that are above 50%. We'll touch on them real quick, and then we'll dive into these deeper guys that are rostered on less than 50%, Travis. We got Mecole Hardman. Henry Ruggs gets into the end zone with a long touchdown there. Devontae Parker, 56% rostered. Rondell Moore, which we talked about at the top of the show, one of my favorite ads for this week. Kenny Gainwell, another one, 51%. And then Sony Michel comes in at 50% with the Henderson news about Henderson's rib cartilage, very similar to excuse me, I was about to say really similar to Cam Akers last year, but Cam Akers actually had a broken rib as well. So not quite the same injury, but Travis, any of those guys that you want to talk about any more specific? I know you talked about Rondell Moore already, most likely your number one waiver wire priority. Any of these other guys, Henry Ruggs, Mecole Hardman, we thought maybe he could have a good game this week. Devontae Parker looking to be somewhat of that connection and go-to. We'll see with what happens with the quarterback situation there in Miami. But any of these other players really popping off that you would say I would be willing to take the number one waiver priority and go and get them?
Yeah, I think Sony Michel becomes one of the most interesting ads. I wish, he was rostered a little bit less than 50%. I could have dove a little bit more into him for the article that'll be up later this afternoon. But 10 carries, so we got double-digit carries after a week, before where he only saw 1 rushing attempt. He got 4.6 yards per attempt here in a game against Indy. And we see the rib cartilage injury, obviously, that Johnny had mentioned with Darrell Henderson is another thing that's on the radar here. So, Just a lot working in Sony's favor. It seems to be something brewing here for him to potentially take over this job. And so that is something we need to watch. I mean, remember, Henderson, they probably only really traded for Sony Michel because Henderson had the thumb injury in the offseason. And they already watched Cam Akers go down. So this is definitely something where we're a little bit concerned about Henderson, his health. The Rams have been concerned about his health, and Sony Michel becomes a guy you should immediately snag up if he's available on your waivers.
100%. Right here, I just will. If you hold your questions till the end about adding and dropping, we'll get to them after we get through the whole article. I do want to consider, because Marquise Brown, we didn't talk about him on this. He's rostered on too many leagues, but absolutely, if Marquise Brown is available on your waiver, definitely go out and grab him. We talked about this on the matchup show breakdown last week about how it seems like Marquise Brown is becoming the number one option for Lamar. It's replacing Mark Andrews. He's had double-digit fantasy points, and now dating back to last year, I believe it's now 8 straight games, something like that. So definitely worth the ad there. He's really coming into his own as a wide receiver. I think we were just a year too early on the Marquise Brown breakout. All right, so let's dive into these guys that are not as high rostered and that you most likely have available in your league. So we'll start at the running back position. Travis, you've got 2 guys, or you got a couple of guys, four running backs that we're going to talk about here. First one is Alexander Madison, Minnesota Vikings running back, roster only 41% of sleeper leagues. Travis, talk about Alexander Madison, why he's such a vital position to go pick up this week. And if you do pick him up, are you looking to start him if Cooks cannot play?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was just a little odd. Obviously, Johnny, I was trying to put Alexander Madison at the top of the article as a guy that was rostered too much. I just figured he would be, but he's only rostered in 41% of sleeper leagues, which means there's a better chance that he's available on your waiver wire than a guy like Rondell Moore or a guy like, James White, who we talked about earlier, which is kind of a shocker to me that the Dalvin Cook owner in your league wouldn't have him. But here's the bottom line. Dalvin Cook is dealing with an ankle injury, could miss time. We'll see what happened. And should he do that, we know that Madison is a plug and play RB2. We don't have to look much further than week 17 of last year, Johnny, where Madison's usage in that game without Dalvin Cook, 24 touches, 145 scrimmage yards, and 2 touchdowns. So, whether Cook or Madison, who draws the start Sunday, I love the matchup because Seattle just gave up 3 scores and 237 yards to Derrick Henry. This is a prime spot if you have Madison, or if you can get Madison and you need this RB fill for this week. This is a spot to do it because it should be a smash start.
Absolutely. You're hoping that Dalvin Cook can go against that Seattle defense, because it would be very nice. But I'll tell you, I watched a lot of this game firsthand because obviously I'm a Cardinals fan, and it just seemed like, and I have Dalvin on a couple of rosters, and it was very scary watching this game because it just seemed like every other series Cook was going down with some kind of apparent injury. Really unfortunate, really unfortunate.
Yeah.
All right, so I am being told my mic is coming in a little choppy, so I apologize as we work through this. Hopefully, I'm coming in.
All the technical difficulties today. Yeah, they don't want us to give you the waiver wire show.
No,
dude.
They don't. They don't want to give. They don't want us to give you the secrets.
Yeah, dude.
All right, next up on this list is my guy, the fantasy glitch, Cordell Patterson. He's coming in the running back section here for Atlanta Falcons. Roster only 16% of fantasy leagues. Talk about Cordell Patterson, the fantasy cheat code here, the fantasy glitch, and tell people why they should seriously go and pick up Cordell Patterson. I won't lie. Go ahead.
Honorable mention last week for me. Wasn't somebody I was really hyping up. I wanted to see a little bit more, and we saw what we needed to see. He's in full consideration for your waiver priority or budget this week. His usage had died off in week 1 as the Falcons the wheels fell off, but they definitely featured him a bit more in week 2. 69 all-purpose yards, nice, and 2 touchdowns in the Falcons' blowout loss to the Buccaneers. We've seen the usage before as the wide receiver. We know the dual eligibility on most platforms as wide receiver running back. So that, the running back usage in your wide receiver slot could be a really big advantage. The reason he's a little bit lower than Madison for me, and some of the other guys that are rostered a little bit more, is because we've kind of seen this show where offenses have tried to feature Patterson before. But I will say right now, like with the passing work, with this team desperate to replace targets with Julio gone, this is a guy that could easily step up and be, used quite a bit. So don't be afraid to go spend some priority on Patterson with or without Mike Davis on your roster. I think Patterson is worth the ad.
The reason I'm so intrigued by Cordell, and it's not that like all of a sudden, he's been in the league for quite a while, but the difference to me this year versus past years is you look at the offensive coordinator we talked about. This is why I was really high on Quadri Ollison, was just the size. Cordell Patterson, 6'2", he's listed as 216, but I believe like on Yahoo and Sleeper, he's a little bit heavy. He was like 225, 230. And you're just looking at comps to where Derrick Henry. I'm not saying Cordell's Derrick Henry. Please don't tweet at me. Travis was getting a little upset last night when I mentioned it. I'm not saying that Cordell is Derrick Henry, but I'm saying when you look at just the body of the football player and what we generally see from Arthur Smith, he likes that kind of bigger backed, bulldozer. And that's what Cordell is for this, with Mike Davis being a much smaller guy. They were both brought in on very similar contracts this offseason. They were like one of the only two free agents that they went out and got. These were two major pieces. And so I do think out of all the years he's ever had a shot to potentially get a bigger workload, I think it's with Atlanta. And like Big Try said, the bigger part of this is not necessarily is he going to be like this, breakout running back that everyone. I don't think that we're saying that. The reason why he's so nice is because, and why we call him the fantasy glitch, is because you can slide him. He's dual position eligible, running back and wide receiver. So if he becomes a guy who is getting 10 to 12 carries for this offense, and you're able to slide that into your wide receiver's position, and now you have a running back getting wide receiver points, the fantasy glitch, Allah. So that's why we're so excited for Cordell. Let me give you a couple of guys before we run on to the next running back. Would you drop for either one of the guys that we just saw, Alexander Madison, Cordell Patterson, or any of the that we talked about top of the show? So would you drop Marquez Callaway, wide receiver? We thought he could have a breakout season. Looked to be a flash in the pan, though. Cordell or Marquez Callaway, would you drop?
Yeah, I'd be dropping Callaway. I think the unfortunate part about that Saints offense is this may be a theme of them all year, is week to week. Do we know if we're going to get the consistency we want? Yeah. And Callaway just hasn't established it, even in the good game, that he could be the number one option for this team.
Jameis Winston, would you drop him?
Yeah, we'll talk about the quarterbacks a little bit later, but I think both quarterbacks in my article today I would drop for Jameis Winston, I would drop Jameis Winston for, and I think we'll talk a little bit more, but any of the running backs for sure I would be dropping a backup quarterback for.
All right, I have two bigger names here. Would you drop Trey Sermon for any of these players?
Trey Sermon's a tough one. We hope that he clears concussion protocol in time for Sunday night. You might not have the ability to start Trey Sermon based on a late, arrival. If he can clear it before then, you're looking good, because this team just, went and signed an XFL guy or an XAFL guy, or, I think, what was his name? Jock Patrick. They've got Lamar Miller and Duke Johnson, who they brought in for workouts. This team, everybody's been injured. Elijah Mitchell did return to the game, so if he's able to suit up, I would imagine he's going to continue to get the bulk of the carries. But Trey Sermon's an interesting one now, because things might have broken in his favor, no pun intended there, for John Michael Hasty, who has a high ankle sprain. Obviously, Jeff Wilson out and Raheem Mostert out as well.
Yeah, so definitely that's a good one. I like that. What about Mark Ingram, who goes off week 1? Comes back only 14 attempts for 41 yards.
Yeah, he's still getting somewhat usage that you like for an RB3, RB2 range. He's just Mark Ingram on the Houston Texans. So for me, I'm going to be getting a guy like Sony Michel with much more upside. I'm going to be getting a guy with James White with much more of an established role. And I'm going to be getting, both of these guys, Cordell Patterson and Alexander Madison, for their upside way more than Mark Ingram.
All right. Like that one. All right. We're going to move on to next guy on this list, Travis. We have another running back for you. This one's a little bit deeper dive. We were pretty excited about him coming into the season. Hasn't shown a whole lot yet, buried in a depth chart. But Ty Johnson, New York Jets running back, rostered on in just 17% of sleeper leagues. Tell us what you like about Ty Johnson. He, again, New York Jets running back. What do you like about his upcoming schedule or his upcoming outlook that you think could really help out fantasy rosters?
Yeah, both Ty Johnson and then J.D. McKissick, who we'll talk about just quickly after this. Both guys are not guys. I mean, I think if I had a tier, it would be Alexander Madison and Patterson above them. But I think that, these two both deserve ads. Ideally, you'd be going out after Michael Carter because they've actually used him a little bit more in the receiving game, and they both had the same amount of touches. But even in a game where the Jets were getting embarrassed by the Patriots, both Carter and Ty Johnson saw some good work. So I would just say that I think for this situation, we have, increased from 4 carries, Johnny, for Ty Johnson to 12 in week 2. He still got over 50 yards. He had 4.4 yards per carry. So Ty Johnson flashing a little bit of juice here in a game where this team was being blown out and really handled. So I think Ty Johnson, I think Michael Carter, both worth ads. Obviously, Carter's rostered a little bit more, so that's why he wasn't mentioned in the article. And then quickly on J.D. McKissick, Johnny, look, as a Gibson lover and a truther, I don't want to be writing about McKissick, but here we are with McKissick, racking up some yardage last week, 83 receiving yards. He caught 5 catches on 6 targets. I would rather have McKissick in the honorable mention, but we did see when this team got more conservative last year when they had to switch to quarterbacks, switching to Alex Smith. McKissick saw a lot of usage as a guy that they really trusted to get the offense going. If I see that happen again this year, which it started to happen a little bit against the New York Giants, that's concerning, especially if you're a Gibson truther and owner. Now, I think Gibson's going to be fine. He's going to be that first down grinder. They're going to do a couple screens a game, but I think McKissick is worth consideration if you're really desperate at running back.
I do like that. I do want to note that the Gibson, if the Gibson owner or whoever is rostering Gibson is panicking, we talked about it a little bit last night. I would wait one more week. They have a difficult matchup this week, and I don't see him producing a whole lot in that. And then I would go out and try to target Gibson. His schedule opens up significantly over this next portion of the season. Not only that, but what we do like from Gibson is that he is getting the bulk of the carries in most of the quarters, right? Where J.D. McKissick is really coming in and stealing away snaps is that 2-minute drill, that 4-minute drill. That's where we see McKissick really coming in. And it makes sense because he is that scat back. He is the guy that is better at pass pro right now, just because he's been in the league for so many years. But am I really, really concerned or majorly concerned that Gibson is not going to be able to reach, that RB1 status by the end of the year? I do still think he finishes as an RB1. So I would still go out and try to acquire him either this week and, just bite the bullet on the game this weekend, or wait till after this weekend and go try to get him on the cheap next week, because I believe that's what's going to happen. All right, moving on to we had talked about some of those running backs that you would drop or players that you would drop. I'll give you just a couple other ones just to ask you, would you drop for them? Tony Jones, running back for the or backup for Kamara. Would you drop Tony Jones for any of these 4 guys? J.D. McKissick,
I think
Ty
the cutoff would be Ty Johnson that I would cut Tony Jones for, only because I think Tony Jones is one of those Alexander Madison types. Should anything happen to Kamara, Tony Jones is a guy that's going to slot right into a plug-and-play start for me. And I do think if we should continue to see more usage out of him. The Saints had a terrible offensive game. I'll need to see more work for the Saints. They'll be up and down. But Tony Jones, I think when the offense is clicking, establishes as kind of some standalone value where these guys may not do that just yet.
James Conner. Would you drop James Conner for any of these guys? Only had 8 carries in this past week against Minnesota for only 26 yards. Has not looked good throughout the first 2 games of the season. He's gotten 24 total touches, averaging like 3.3 3 yards per carry. Nothing significant there.
Yeah, I think I could drop James Conner. I think, Chase Edmonds has shown enough to be kind of the lead dog in this backfield. So yeah, I think Conner's fine to drop, unless you are the Edmonds owner and you really want to keep your handcuff here.
All right. We're going to jump into the wide receiver section here of this waiver wire pickup show. Once again,
I got to say, it's
Whoa.
dire in the wide receiver section. And
Yeah.
I think that's because what we were talking about at the top of the show, there's a lot of guys still rostered, a lot of deeper leagues, but there are some interesting cats down here. So I'll try to work through them. But I just wanted to preface, I'm not loving the guys I'm having to suggest here just based on roster percentage. So.
All right. First wide receiver we got up. I don't think it's too bad. It's not as great as last week, but Zach Pascal, wide receiver of the Indianapolis Colts. You wrote about him last week. He's back on here, only roster on 36%, gets another touchdown this past weekend. Seems to be kind of the go-to wide receiver. Now, we will monitor Carson Wentz and whether or not he ends up playing this weekend. It doesn't seem that great, considering he got double ankle sprain on usually. I'm not even kidding you, Travis. I thought that only happened in basketball, where you get both your ankles, twisted and broken. But Carson Wentz gets in a football game, and it's not. They're having more tests done today. There are some rumors that they could try to trade for Nick Foles. A lot going on there in Indianapolis right now. So with that said, Zach Pascal still your number one waiver wire if you don't have Rondell Moore on your waiver wire column, on your waiver wire.
Yeah, so all the guys we talked about, Jalen Waddle, Pittman, who saw massive targets on this same team, rostered in too high of a percentage for me to talk about. Marvin Jones, we talked about all guys I would take above Zach Pascal. But the bottom line is this. Yes, he hasn't eclipsed 50 yards in either game, but he's converted on all 3 red zone targets this year, 3 touchdowns, 2 in week 1, 1 in last week. Johnny talked about the Wentz injury. Of the guys I'm about to tell you about, like this, and of the guys that are in the article, this is the one guy, Pascal's the one guy you could actually make a case for to take over as the number 1 for his team. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm talking about when I say that's why he's got to be the highest priority, because his path to number 1 volume as a wide receiver in this offense is actually the clearest. When we get into other guys behind him, they're dealing with some other talent around them that's going to be in their way.
All right, next wide receiver we're going to talk about here, my guy, Tim Patrick, come on down from the Denver Broncos, rostered on only 34% of sleeper leagues. Honestly, Travis, this would probably be my number 1 waiver wire pickup if he's available. Tim Patrick, once again, dating back to last season, double-digit fantasy points in, I believe, 7 straight now. Let me double-check that and vet that. But that's what I believe the stat it comes in at. Only didn't get a plethora of targets like we'd like to see, like Jerry Jeudy was kind of getting. We were hoping that he would just slide over and take over that Jerry Jeudy role. Monster game from Cortland Sutton this week, which we did kind of predict. Once again, shout out to and humble brag to our matchup breakdown show. We did call this, but Tim Patrick having himself another nice day. What do you like about Tim Patrick? Is he available to go into your starting lineup? If you pick him up, are you looking to play him, or is it just like more of a bench stash, a depth piece for you?
I still think he's a depth piece only because he hasn't, similar to Zach Pascal, he hasn't cleared 40 yards in either game this year. He played back-to-back games with 70% of snaps. That has to be because of Jerry Jeudy. We know this team likes Tim Patrick, even though they have a guy in KJ Hamler who's there, that could be an easy slot to a number 3 for them. So they still have Patrick playing 70% of the snaps. But Johnny, it's just like one of those touchdown dependent things right now. And for me, if I'm going to put in my lineup, I'm chasing the touchdown. You could be out this week on the game he doesn't score. They do play the Jets. We like the matchup. That's fine. He'll come in there. He seems to be establishing some rapport. But again, we've got a guy in Cortland Sutton on this roster who's going to be the number 1. We've got Noah Fant kind of staying healthy and emerging back again as an option for this team. And so we've got the backs that are even used in the passing game as well. I just think there's a lot to be in his way for massive targets, which we need to see out of a guy we're picking up on the waivers and trusting in our lineup right away. But I do like Patrick as maybe the second waiver wire ad based on roster percentage this week, just on the offense. I think Denver, and I'll talk a little bit about Teddy B, is an offense that I'm trying to invest in right now. It seems to be an offense that's very efficient, that's got a good running game, and got some other weapons they can lean on.
Speaking of lean on me when you're gone, because you need Braxton Barrios on your waiver wire. That's right.
Oh, man.
Barrios, Big Travis boy coming. Our article, wide receiver for the Jets, just underrated. Big Travis, tell they need to go pick up Barrios, the B-man.
Braxton Barrios now, I can't even believe it, but we're talking about him here. 18 targets over weeks 1 and 2, 12 catches, over 120 all-purpose yards between both games. Now, his yards per catch, only 10 yards, but Zach Wilson seems to have a thing for Braxton Barrios here, and he's peppering him with targets. We like that. He's my third priority here. He'd be just a little bit behind Tim Patrick, and that's just because of the offense. I don't trust the offense as much, and I think that, as Elijah Moore comes on, as Corey Davis continues to establish himself, Braxton Barrios will probably find himself back in the 3 to 4 target to 5 target range. But right now he's really hot, and it's not, DFS or what the heck flex situations. You might be getting him out there.
All right, I'm going to give you a couple of other guys. You could just briefly talk about them because these are going to be like 16 teamers. Hunter Renfrow, Las Vegas Raiders, slot wide receiver, had to have that connection with Derek Carr. You got AJ Green getting on to the scoreboard this week. Did get a touchdown there in the Arizona game. High-powered offense once again. Quintez Cephas, talked about him a little bit. He was popping off as the Detroit Lions wide receiver. Not exactly a guy that pick up and will just be like kicking themselves for not picking up. But it's worthy noting, like, Detroit seems to be a team that's be down quite often. And so you could definitely see Quintez becoming one of the better pass catching options for Jared Goff. We do know married Robert Woods as, a 15 wide receiver. Talk about those 3 guys. Which one you most between Hunter Renfrow, AJ Green, and Quintez Cephas? We'll also throw in Quez Watkins, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles in list. All of those guys roster under 30% of sleeper. So where would you go? And I could follow that up. You would potentially opt for any of those.
Yeah, I think that of those guys, I'm probably thinking AJ Green has the most upside. It's hard for me to let go of AJ Green right now, even though he's kind of been a little bit dusted the last 2 years. But the guy is an elite talent at times in the NFL. He's playing in the best offense of these guys that we're talking about. I like Hunter Renfrow. He's getting some great targets. He's just it's not down the field a lot. He's not going to be inspiring. So in PPR, he'll be fine, but even then, he's only a 40, wide receiver 44 in PPR. And then Cephas playing for a team that I think could interchange that wide receiver each and every week. That's going to be the top option at wide receiver because we know it's going to be Hawkinson and probably the backs, and then they're the third fiddle, the wide receivers. So yeah, I think AJ Green and then even Quez Watkins have the most upside of those guys we're going to talk about because of the state of their offense, their ability. Especially Quez Watkins, who basically had 2 catches for 100+ yards, in that game against San Francisco. So you see the big playability there. But yeah, I think those are the 2 guys that kind of stand out of the rest of the list here.
Yeah, AJ Green just won 80% snap count, has back-to-back. So he's exactly taking for that role of Christian Kirk last year. Christian Kirk on average about targets. So again, there is some upsides. We know Christian Kirk really nice week or last year that you. All right, let me guys that you for any of these wide receivers out. Nelson.
Yeah, I'm okay with dropping Nelson Aguilar here for the top guys we talked about, just because I think Jacoby Myers and James White are actually going to be the way this team moves the ball through the air. It seems like even the tight ends. So Zach Pascal, Tim Patrick, you want to take even a shot at Braxton Barrios. I think those are all worth adding over a guy like Nelson Aguilar.
This next one is going to be sorry, but I got to ask. We've been getting a lot of questions on him. Laviska Shenault. Would you drop Laviska?
Yeah, this one is painful. He's in pain too, dealing with a shoulder injury. So I wouldn't mind ditching him, because I think even if he's back, it seems to be that it's Shark and Marvin Jones before it's going to be Laviska, which is unfortunate.
All right, Travis, let's roll on to this ending of our we got tight end, 2 tight end, quarterback to close out this show. Once again, I'm a little staticky and staticky, so I pause once again, trying to figure out my mic situation here. 2 tight ends here. Max Williams had a nice day. He had a double doinker where he caught for like 20 yards. Really helped this offense for their to see that. Max Williams, and for a very pass heavy offense, we do Tyler. He did go to Dan quite often last year. So definitely for the Indianapolis, we did think Mo Alley had an opportunity potentially to really break out this year. Not looking going to happen again. Jack Doyle, Mr. Reliable, old Yeti at the end position, only rostered on 2%. Out of these 2 tight ends, which one do you like? And give me a couple of tight ends that you would drop for, like Mike Gesicki. Might drop Mike for any of these guys? Kind of those borderline tight end.
Yeah, I think Gesicki's fine to keep. We saw some usage that increased. You want to check the Tua situation and make sure he's going to be okay. I think there's a situation here where you would be keeping, Noah Fant, obviously, who's increased usage. Dallas Goedert, who had a bad week, I think you'd be keeping him. That was a tough matchup against San Francisco. So I think you'd be keeping him over these guys, because look, Max Williams in week 1 saw 1 target. Last week saw 7. I think that was the encouraging thing for me. I saw the double doinker play, or the weird play that Johnny talked about, where it's like we're you could say this was the play that boomed him, but what we saw was he saw 7 targets. He was still involved, and if this team is going to continue to pass at this ferocity, that's what we want. Is we want pieces of it, and so that's why Rondell Moore, AJ Green, Max Williams are all finding themselves on this list as guys that are potential ads, because we know we want to invest in blue chip offenses. So this is definitely one of those in Arizona. Talk a little bit about Jack Doyle, who just got some extra usage here than he saw last week. He doubled his targets. He went from 4 targets to 8, caught 5 of them for 64 yards. We, again, with the Zach Pascal take, it's the same thing where we've got Carson Wentz maybe banged up. So this could all go away, because we know that Wentz has liked his tight end in the past. We saw Zach Ertz be a number 1 option in fantasy from the tight end position when Wentz was there. But if Wentz is going to be hurt, then we can't even get excited about the uptick in usage for Doyle or any of the tight ends, because we don't know if he's going to stay in and keep the chemistry going. So I have to write about Doyle because he's in here. He got some targets, but he's definitely, behind Max Williams for me.
And we will part out, and then we'll jump into questions coming in here on what they should do, trades like that. So thank you with us. We'll jump into those in just a second. Quarterbacks, we got 2 streamable ones. We want to talk about Teddy B for the Denver Broncos. Teddy B on 24% of sleeper leagues, and then Derek Carr. Everyone's been asking. He's had 2 big weeks for the Las Vegas Raiders. He looks good, but with an ankle injury, roster on only 30. Is it time to trust Derek Carr? Time to trust Mr. Reliable Teddy Bridgewater in your lineup going forward?
I think Teddy Bridgewater's next game is the one that really got me excited more than Derek Carr. So I put Teddy Bridgewater ahead of him in the article as the priority that I would go after, because Teddy B plays the Jets and Derek Carr plays the Dolphins, and we know the Dolphins have a pretty tough secondary. So yeah, for me, I think it's definitely Teddy B, but it's close. Derek Carr has over 800 yards. As Jersey J says, trust Carr. Derek Carr has over 800 yards in the first 2 games. This offense seems to be clicking. It doesn't matter that they don't have a run game pretty much. They've been throwing everywhere, and that's kind of what helped Carr get to where he needs to go in fantasy. But both of these guys with over 24 fantasy points in the first 2 weeks, both Teddy Bridgewater and Derek Carr. Maybe you take your preference, but both have really solid offenses with clear number 1 options in them. Both have athletic tight ends. So there's a lot to like out of both of these guys, especially as streamable options in the next couple weeks.
I like that. I did start Teddy B this past week in a league. I had to stream him because I had Tua and Fields that I had in that league, so couldn't start, and I wasn't. So I Teddy B ended up doing a fine job for me this week. I'll probably roll him out there again, depending on what happens with Fields. Hopefully Fields is good to go by this week, but that does it.
Sports Live did want to ask me or ask us about what's our thought on Daniel Jones. So Daniel Jones made the honorable mention portion of this column. The problem is that his upcoming schedule is not looking very good for Daniel Jones. So it's a little bit more brutal, but yeah, I mean, the rushing upside is always there with Daniel Jones. We've seen that he's very athletic. Is sneaky athletic, I should say. But I don't think he's a guy I'm going to take over either of the 2 that we mentioned here.
All right, so I will mention those real quick, honorable mentions. So check if a lot of these guys are all taken in your league, which could happen. It happens in some of our leagues. Make sure you look for these guys. Deep stashes here. Darius Slayton for the Giants roster on only 8% of sleep. Brandon, I can't even say his last name. Zylstra. Excuse me. Thank you. There's only 1% of. We got Freddie, Seattle Seahawks roster. He looked good, by the way, with the rookie dealing with some injuries over there. Taylor Heineke. Heineke. That's right. Taylor, Washington football team roster on 10% of sleeper leagues. So for that, if you're in for deeper leagues, that's where we would be going. All right, that does it. That does that show, that part of that show. We're going to dive now into these questions. People asking specific drops, specific ads. We got some goodies going on in here. People are asking about. Start off and say thank you to one that has joined us to our channel. Please consider hitting that subscribe. We're trying to get to the end of this week. We need about 25 more people to hit subscribe, and Whisper Nation will be to 2K. And if you like fantasy football content, want to continue the conversation, make sure you join the Discord. Link to that is in the description below. Got a lot of people in our Discord. It's popping off all the time. Appreciate you guys all the time. All right, so here we go. We got Is Elijah Moore by JML Sports. Is Elijah Moore worth a stash? 16-team half PPR.
Yeah, in that format, definitely worth the stash. We see the targets that are getting into Braxton Barrios right now. You'd love to see those converted over as Elijah Moore gets more involved, as Zach Wilson gets, his feet under him a little bit more. That's definitely a guy I think that is still worth stashing in that format.
Definitely. ML saying, love the Tony Pollard take, solid flex rest of the year. And if Zeke goes down or just loses his job outright, then Pollard is a top 10 running back. Definitely agree with that. What price? Oh, I think we did talk about this during what price would you pay for Zeke, Eckler, or Montgomery? I don't even know if you could get that. And then we also have
Zeke losing his job outright. I don't know if that'll actually happen, but I mean, it would be pretty wild if they were paying him over $100 million and then they gave Pollard some work.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do that. Gus Ramos was saying Fields against Detroit in the Kyler Murray bye week because someone was asking about grabbing.
Well, that was dropping Tannehill for Fields. Yeah.
So good lookout there. That's a great matchup going against Detroit that week. We like that. We got T Cool. Yeah. Would you trade Kamara for Hopkins and Hunt? Percent would. I'm really worried about Kamara right now with the way that offense in New Orleans looks.
I mean, and then Hopkins, the way that the offense is now getting to that next gear that we talked about with Arizona. Yeah, this would be an interesting one. I do think that Kamara is a hold for me in this particular just because of the running back position. I think that we've seen this before with Kamara, that he's had some dip games, but then he's the guy that can come in and really spike your week at any time. So
All right.
it would be a hold for me.
Clap asking if I was to trade Kelsey, what type of haul could I get? Just wondering.
You'd hope you'd get an RB2 or better if you're trading away the number one tight end. If you're really RB needy, then I understand doing that. But yeah, I would hold tight on trying to. I would keep Kelsey in most leagues. The advantage is too good.
And again, what we always advise and say is not necessarily we can't give you an exact person to go out and target run, because you don't know what that team situation is. Go to a team that needs a tight end, might have a plethora of the players that you're looking. Like if you need a running back, go to a team that has a lot of running backs. Maybe they have 4 or 5 and they need a tight end. Then it's easier to get that kind of deal done. That's going to help out both sides. Neither side's going to get angry. You get a good turnout there. So that's what we advise if you're trying to do something like we got Jersey J saying, hey bros, what's up? Time to trade Callaway? ? Depending on who you need to pick up. I do
Callaway,
think I do think it's fine to drop Callaway. Listen, so he's asking, would you drop him for Moore, KJ Osborne, Patrick, and or Mooney? I would drop him for Rondell Moore. I would drop him for Tim Patrick. I don't think I would do it for KJ or Darnell quite yet. I do think that ML saying I'd wait another week or two on Callaway. The problem go ahead, Travis.
I would actually drop Callaway for KJ Osborne. And the reason I say that is because KJ Osborne is similar to Callaway, right? That he's a field stretcher, can make the big play happen for them. They've been going deep to him. Only they're actually scheming stuff for KJ Osborne. I mean, you saw that. That was a scripted play. They came out and said, we're going to go and attack with KJ Osborne. So that's something that's interesting for a guy that we want to throw in our flex from time to time. KJ Osborne is a guy that's, going to be attacked deep into the lineup. And Osborne would have been in the waiver wire, of course, but he was in it last week and he got picked up by quite a bit. So I think he's a guy that's definitely worth adding.
So Jersey J is saying, he asked for Callaway for one of those receivers, or would you drop Ingram instead? I would drop Ingram instead of one of those. I would drop Ingram for Moore or Patrick over Callaway. Would you? Or you're still trusting in? It just makes me nervous, especially with Tyrod not as the quarterback anymore. That offense was actually looking somewhat like
I think get Rondell Moore, KJ Osborne, I think even Tim Patrick. I think Callaway is a guy that I have concerns. Even in the good game that New Orleans had on offense, they were not scheming him into the offense.
Mr. Miyagi saying voice of an angel, but a take from the devil. He was talking about my in there. Appreciate it. I love Mr. Miyagi always giving me confidence in my voice. ML, I think because we had someone ask, thoughts on Do It 420 asked thoughts on Sterling Shepard role.
I mean, we talked about it coming into week 1 that we thought he was a guy that could easily lead this team in catches. He's been perennially disrespected, an injury-prone guy in his past. If he can stay healthy, stay on the field, we know he has rapport with Daniel Jones. I think it's fine to work him into the mix.
All right, we got Inglorious P. I am 0-2. When should I start making big changes to my team? Well, I think. Oh, Travis, you can mention that if you want to talk about it.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I think it's never too early to start looking at how you can produce and get better up arrows on your squad. I would just be concerned about trading away too soon. Look at your schedule. Look at the, not even more into your schedule. Look at the players that you have that have matchups over the next couple of weeks. See if you're actually going to have a good shot. See if you're playing any of the other teams that are struggling in your league. There's a lot of things you can do here without actually blowing the team up just yet to kind of forecast what you need to do and maybe give it one more week. But I think, the 3 to 4 week mark is somewhere where we say this is now the time to start looking at what your team's made of and what you can go acquire.
And I will also throw this out there. I know we do talk about you want to start off fast. And in general you do, because you don't want to be chasing wins. However, it's not impossible. You're looking at two guys here who have started off their seasons, 0-5, 0-6, and still been able to make that push for the playoffs. Just a lot more difficult to do so. But hang with us. We'll give you the guys that you need to pick up. We'll make this team. Also, yeah, if your team, we'll tell people this all the time, look at your team and just have a real conversation with yourself. Look yourself in the mirror and just say, am I putting up points with my team? And that's not, it's just like I'm getting bad luck because I'm playing other guys that are also going off and it's just been bad luck. Or if you're one of those teams that is like definitely in the bottom and scoring each time and your bench isn't going off either, then that's when we'd say, okay, maybe it is time to start making some bigger moves if that's the case. But in most cases, people just have some bad luck first 2 weeks, and it is what it is. It's unfortunate. You can't do anything but play the people on your schedule, and so there could be some better days ahead. But it definitely takes a real evaluation of your own roster.
Absolutely.
All right. We have this. Is Kenny G worth trading for? Gage and Juwan for Galladay. I would immediately hit.
Yeah, if you can do that deal, if you can do that, do it. But
he's saying he can, so I definitely do think he should.
Kenny G should continue to start to increase in targets, increase in usage in this offense because they did pay him a lot of money. So
yeah, ML saying he's probably one of my top buy low targets right now. Already traded for him a day ago in a league, trying for more. Absolutely agree. Do think that Galladay does have some better days ahead, especially saying gets Philly and Dallas in the fantasy playoffs this upcoming week. Definitely agree. Once they get a little bit more on the same page between Danny Dimes and himself, it could be a very, very nice benefit over the second half of the season. Would you take 420 asks, take KJ Osborne over Tim Patrick?
I don't think I would do that just yet. I think to Johnny's, I don't know if Johnny's trying to get in here or not. So the laggy's interrupted me. I don't know if he's in or not.
I am. I'm here.
You're here? Okay.
Yeah,
sorry about that. I thought it freezes a couple times. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, no.
Sorry. So KJ Osborne, like I said, does get schemed into things, but Tim Patrick's a guy that's playing more percentage of snaps. He's a guy that this team, I actually trust his role in the offense a little bit more than KJ Osborne. Osborne feels like the guy that it's going to fall out any week where you're going to be like, how come he only had 1 target and 0 catches and he put a 0 up in my lineup? Like that could happen any week with Osborne. Patrick, I think, is going to at least get some consistent usage while Judy is out.
All right. Let's see. Sorry, I missed a bunch over here. Let's see. I'm trying to get through. Okay, Eric here asking, should I drop Ronald Jones for Cordell Patterson, Sony Michel, or Latavius Murray? I have Mike Davis and Dalvin Cook as running back, James Conner and Ronald Jones on the bench. I would drop James Conner over Ronald Jones. I know that somebody else came in here. Tater Tot said the same thing. We agree. We would drop. But of those, I want to ask you, Trav, those Cordell Patterson, Sony Michel, or Latavius Murray, who would you pick up over James Conner, or drop James Conner for, I should say?
Sony Michel.
Yeah, or Latavius.
Yeah, I actually think, Sony Michel, and then I would think Patterson before I would take Latavius Murray. Okay. Latavius Murray, I just think not very good. No real upside other than just maybe plunging into a goal line. But we saw Tyson get the goal line carry against Kansas City too. So I don't even think that he's locked into goal line usage every time either. So Patterson, a lot more upside, but even more than Patterson, Sony Michel could take over the Rams starting job, especially if Henderson gets hurt. So yeah, I would be dropping Ronald Jones for Sony Michel, and I would drop him for Patterson.
We got D-Bud asking what you think I could get for Tyson Williams and Woods. I know it's tough to say. Yeah, we once again, we encourage people, if you have something like, go ahead, Travis, if you have an idea.
Yeah, I don't. This one's tough. I don't think you could pull this off, but maybe if the DK Metcalf team is a little bit RB needy, if you could go and try and get on a depleted guy that's like still getting some targets. DK is a good example, just because he got 11 targets last week, but he hasn't really put up big numbers. That's what I would go and try and do. But it might be tough to do just because Woods hasn't produced really either. And you'd just be saying, hey, here's Tyson, a running back, and an underproducing wide receiver. Give me your underproducing wide receiver. That's where I'd be looking to go maybe attack, is some of these guys that are just underperforming right now. Maybe, I mean, Julio did have a big yardage game, but Julio would have been a nice target you could get maybe with something like this. There's some other guys out there that you can kind of take a look at.
Mm-hmm. All right. Sorry, Jersey J saying, sorry, didn't mean to ask it again for the guys mentioned plus RBs. You mentioned I have Callaway, Aguilar, and Ingram. Which two should I try to drop full PPR? I would drop Aguilar and Ingram of the two.
Yeah. I mean, I would honestly, I think you're still too invested in I think Callaway is just like, everybody's invested in Callaway, and it's like, dude, what has he done? He hasn't flashed anything other than the two preseason plays. Like, let's talk about what they even were. They were just two big deep plays.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why the take I had on Osborne is because Osborne's putting it on the field in NFL action right now. With Aguilar, yeah, you could drop. I think you could drop. He's asking to drop. Which two should I drop of those two? Yeah, I think I'd keep Ingram just because the usage as an RB, we want that, we want to keep that full point PPR. I would actually keep Aguilar because he's actually got a shot at more targets right now in a full point PPR. So I think Callaway is like getting really dicey for Callaway. If we don't trust, I mean, Johnny, if you're worried about Alvin Kamara, how come you're not worried about Callaway? You know what I mean? Like
it has nothing. It has to do everything with draft capital, where you got him. Right, like
fair enough.
That's the reason why I'm not necessarily, because you were able to get Callaway so late that, like, if you're waiting,
then so you should just be able to just cut him if you've got him so late. Like, it's time to move on and cycle through guys, right?
Yeah, to an extent. I do agree to an extent that you do that, but like Nelson Aguilar, am I really going? I mean, Nelson Aguilar had like 2 catches or 2 targets, so like I don't think I'm going. And like you said, Mark Ingram. He didn't get any targets. He got, it's majorly game scripted dependent for him. And do you really trust Mark Ingram
No, you don't trust him, but we know that when you have RB needs and you get dire at RB, you have to start plugging in guys you don't love,
Yeah, that's true. It does have some difficult matchups coming up too, I guess. New England, the Giants, and Washington, all those number ones could potentially. So, and then, Michael Thomas, presumably coming back. So yeah, I would be okay.
Again, I know you love Callaway, and I'm not trying to come at your boy here, but you just said, it's like.
Well, I said I would probably drop.
Here's the thing:
if needed.
Aguilar had 3 catches in that last game, and Callaway's had 3 catches all year. So my point is that Callaway's not even getting schemed into his own offense when he was supposed to be the number 1 here. That's my whole. Like, he's just not. It's not happening yet. And I don't want to panic too early on guys that, like, you could be a stash. If you are just sitting here looking for a reason to drop a guy, Jersey J, that's not what we want to do here. Like, you keep on to your stashes if you need, want to. But yeah,
here's a good one. It's been 2 weeks of Robbie Anderson. I'm a little worried about him. Am I questioning if I should start him or move on? Thoughts on Robbie Anderson in general? Honestly, you might be able to trade him because some people do believe in him still. I don't. But he did have a nice week 1, so you could possibly trade him for something, as opposed to just dropping him. But I am not a believer in Robbie Anderson. No.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you on Patterson, or I'm with you on Anderson as well. I was trying to read this next one here.
Which this one?
Players like Patterson and Pollard are the top waiver receivers. For the top waiver receivers, yeah. I mean, I'd be out there trying to get there.
Yeah, like I would drop Callaway for either one of these players for sure. All right, D Bud asking, would you guys do Zeke and Deontay for Kamara? I would not.
No.
All right, and who wins this trade? PPR, Tyreek Hill, or for Jonathan Taylor and Waddle? Ooh, I do like the Jonathan Taylor and Waddle for Tyreek.
Yeah, I think Tyreek wins that trade, obviously, because I mean, just the offense that he's in. If Wentz goes down, I'm worried about Jonathan Taylor and the offense there. So yeah, I think you want the better player in the trade.
I need an RB, and all available are super low roster percentage, 20% and under. Please help. Is this, if you need one this week, do you have any in mind, Travis? Underneath 20%.
Yeah, so the only one we've seen underneath 20%, Cordell Patterson, 16% Ty Johnson, J.D. McKissick. So roll with Patterson. He's being used in the passing game. He's a guy with great upside. Go out there and snag him if you've got him.
And then if you have a spot to stash and you're looking for a stash, Jeff Wilson Jr. coming back off the IR shortly. We do know that the 49ers go through running backs like water. Obviously, they're signing everyone and their mother to come and play for the running back position there. So definitely not another stash that you could potentially grab. All right, let's see. Cole, start Swift or Tyson Williams. Cole, we want to. It is Tuesday. It's early in the week. We have not dove into our full-on matchups yet. Make sure you check back with our podcast or go on over to our Patreon account and sign up for our monthly Patreon. We do a weekly matchup breakdown of every single matchup, and we get this kind of information to you. And then if you want to join our show on Sundays, we do a lineup show 90 minutes before kickoff every single Sunday. So make sure you hit that subscribe, hit that bell so you get notified when we go live for that, so you can join in and ask us then.
Rendon asking if you drop Will Fuller for Rondell Moore. I think you can drop Will Fuller for Rondell Moore. Just be advised, Will Fuller could actually pop here as well, but I like Rondell Moore's usage as well. And then Mr. Miyagi asking if Higgins is a stash. He's more than a stash. He's the PPR wide receiver 26. Like, he's doing just fine. Drafted right about where you took him.
So Jarvis Landry goes to IR.
He's talking about Richard. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
What would be interesting is is it Pope or
Well, and the other thing we haven't seen is OBJ in the lineup yet. If
right.
OBJ is active, and then it may not matter, just like it didn't really matter outside of Landry for those other ones. Rashad Penny, a cut candidate in Dynasty, Johnny.
Probably. I mean, he's back on the IR. This is last year in that contract. I don't know if 49ers might pick him up after this year, and then he's probably going to be a good running back for him. I don't know. That's just a joke. I don't actually think that. Yeah, probably. I mean, if you don't have a spot, you need a spot, then I'm fine. I'm cutting ties with Rashad Penny. I'm throwing in the towel like Rocky should have done, and Rocky too, but he didn't. And that's it. That's all I got today.
We're throwing the towel on the show, but we appreciate Whisper Nation, all you in there. Remember, the waiver wire article will be up later today, so make sure you're out there looking at that on the fantasywhispers.com. I had to add a couple guys in here. You guys were reminding me of some guys to maybe take a look at and get in here and let you guys know about. So love Whisper Nation being in here, getting our questions in. As always, you guys, keep rocking with us. We'll be back tomorrow with the Thursday night preview show.
All right. Appreciate you, Whisper Nation. Have a great rest of your day. Good luck on waivers. If you have any more questions, hit us up on social media. All right. For Big Travie, you can find him on Twitter at Big Travie TFW. I'm Johnny Game Time. You can find me on Twitter at Johnny_Game Time. Till next time, Whisper Nation, we're out. Peace.
Peace.
Right here.
Look at you go. You made it to the end of another one of our videos. Hey, if you still have some questions, I totally understand. Or you just want to join an awesome fantasy football community, head on over to our Discord chat. Link is in the description below. And if you're still not sold on us, check out one of these videos.